Alright, what's up, gang? So we're back with another installment on the adventure van. Today what we're doing is I was attempting to just fix a quick transmission leak from the housing here, the seal where the input shaft goes for the drive shaft. I thought it was just a seal, but there was significant damage from a failed bearing, and so the differential bearing was like completely wasted. There was some pretty bad damage. You know, I was able to find them all. There's 22 roller bearings for the cage, and let's see if I can pick some of these up. You can see that there's pitting and they're just like worn down, mushroomed, and you know, the cage has like wear, and you know, it was just failing. So there's obviously metal shavings in the pan and oil. And first I need to go to the junkyard and get a new extension housing because the bearing was so damaged that the bearing was so damaged that it left too much play in the drive shaft, so the drive shaft kind of ovaled out the extension housing where it sits in and stuff. I'm gonna have to go find one of those. So, you know, I'm halfway into this job. I wasn't planning on making a video, but since I found all this damage, I figured, hey, why not? Let's show some of the stuff that I'm doing on the van. Alright, gang, I'm back from the junkyard, and I picked up some pieces. I picked up the output shaft housing because mine is like all chewed up. You can tell. It's just all grounded down from the shaft. This one was from a 91 Grand Voyager. Pretty identical except for the speed sensors on this shaft. And that I would just either leave this on here or put on like a block off plate or something, because I don't need it for mine. Mine has the speed sensor somewhere else. This is my original one. I don't know if you can, probably can't tell, but this lip thing, this is like it's like a splash shield for the fluid, so it doesn't just like constantly come out, and then it like drains through that hole in between there and stuff. The bearing on the driver's side was already eating away at this. You can see some gouging in there, and this one was pretty fresh, pretty clean. It had a really smooth bearing race in there, so I figured I might as well just bring it home because I was gonna have to replace this and the bearing race on this side anyways, because it was starting to get chewed out. You can see some pitting there and some wear, so I would have had to replace that stuff anyways. And this, even though it's used, it's still in really good condition, and this whole piece was less than what the race was going to be, and having it pressed in and stuff. So I just went ahead and bought it just because when I popped it off, it was in really good condition. Gonna pop these seals out, put in new seals. The races are in good condition, so I'm not worried about those. This one too. This one's in good condition. Look at my old one. It got so chewed out that it actually like cut into it and was like already eating away at it and cutting through it. So next I gotta go get the bearings for this guy, differential. Clean all of this stuff up and get it all prepped and ready. Pressing new bearings on this thing because this one was making a lot of noise. This one was completely chewed out to the point where when I took off the housing from the transmission, all the roller bearings just like fell off, and the cage fell off because it was completely destroyed. So that's what caused all of this damage, is that bearing went out and destroyed everything. Luckily, well, I still don't know. It looks like all the metal shavings were caught in the filter, and you know, fingers crossed. I'm just gonna put this together and get it going again. I have plans to rebuild one of these transmissions and put it in fresh in the van anyways at a much later time. Right now, I'm just gonna focus on getting this job done with the new bearings so that I can drive it. And the reason I started doing this is because the transmission leak was so bad that when I tried to go to get it smog, they told me they wouldn't put it on their dyno thing because it was leaking transmission fluid, and they wouldn't do the smog for me. Alright, so we're gonna remove this bearing. Sorry about the washing machine, but that's what I gotta work with. First, I'm gonna cut the cage off. Okay, just cut off. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the same thing that I did to this one. I'll just cut a slit in it and then hit it with a hammer with a chisel, and hopefully that'll give you a nice crack all the way down to where it's loose enough to just kind of knock out with a chisel and a hammer. Okay, and I can't find my chisel, have no idea where it is, so I'm just gonna use this alignment tool that I have. It's like a big chisel at the end and a hammer. And I'm gonna set it up on these wood blocks so that I'm not marring the gear. There's some hard counter and I can chip a gear, so I just place this on wood. Then I'm just gonna put the chisel right on that slit that I made and hit it with a hammer. Try to get it to crack. It looks like that did a hairline crack to finish my cut. I don't know if the camera's gonna pick it up, but I'll try to zoom in on it. So you can see the hairline crack right in the middle. And that hairline crack should be just enough clearance for this bearing to be loose enough to start being wiggled around with my screwdriver and start knocking it out. So that's what I was looking for. I did my slit and then I hit it with the chisel to like finish cracking it. Be careful, because like this happened, a big chunk of it just flew out and broke off. So you might be wanting to be wearing safety glasses when you're doing this. Just an FYI. And now you can see it separating from the seat. Now we can start prying there. I'm just gonna right here. There we go. Locked up. All right, next up, let's get this thing a bit cleaning. Got some brakes parts cleaner. Brush stuff. I've said before, I'm gonna rebuild one of these transmissions eventually. So right now, this is just to get this van going again. Alright, that should do it. Alright, so I got my little setup. I got my toaster oven here. I got my bearings. And I got this was in the freezer. You can see the frost on it. I had it in a Ziploc bag so it keep like moisture from it. And I've had it in there for about 24 hours. So hopefully that plus the heating up of the bearings is enough to get this to slide in. And I'm just using my old bearing because it's the same diameter as my new bearing. It doesn't hit the cage at all, so that's what you want. If it was hot enough and expanded enough, it might just slip in. But you know, this toaster oven doesn't really get that hot. So this is what I'm working with. I'm just gonna keep working it like this until it's all the way in. Alright, and there it is. I drove it all the way home. You gotta make sure you really center it so you don't mess up your cage. And then other than that, just drive it in. I switched to a bigger hammer because the rubber mallet was having too much cushion and wouldn't drive it in. But after I switched to the hammer, it all went in good. Alright, so that's one side. Yeah, it's completely seated. That's one side. I gotta turn this around and do the other side. Alright, and that's it. I got both sides on. There's one side, there's the other. Used a piece of wood because look at all that marring. If I had done it on my hard counter, I could have ruined the bearing. Alright, so to give myself clearance to get that differential out of there, out of that hole, I undid the bolts for this cross member there. Undid the bolts for the steering rack to give me some play. And I just lowered this down. I just lowered it on one side because that's all I needed to squeeze that differential out of there. And I'll do the same thing. I'll just like lower this a little bit and squeeze the differential back in. Alright, so I just wanted to show you how I did that, because ideally you want to take the cross member completely out, but you know. So far my surfaces look pretty clean for my gasket maker to get on there, and I cleaned everything out as best I can with brake spark cleaner. So at this point I'm ready to start putting things back on. And I am gonna start with this piece. This goes on the driver's side in there, and that's one of the bearing races that holds the differential in place. Got a new axle seal on there, and we're gonna do some gasket maker around here to seal it up and then bolt that in. All right, so by removing this joint here, moving it aside, lowering this, and jacking up the engine and transmission, gives you just enough clearance to sneak that differential into place. But first, we need to put this guy in at the same time that we're setting that guy in, because if you put this one in first, you won't have enough clearance to get that differential into place. So we have to use both hands and put them in. Slide this in, and slide that differential in at the same time. All right, now that we got the driver's side housing in place, we slip that differential into place, and it grabs the drive shaft and the transmission. And now we can put the passenger side extension housing on, and then put that cover on here. And then of course I'll let the gasket maker, I'll let it cure. All right, so here we are. Extension housing's on, differential cover's on. It's been over 24 hours and I've let everything cure. You can see here I barely have like the tiniest bit of squeeze out, and that's what you want. You don't want like a ton of squeeze out from the adhesive, because you got to remember, if it squeezes out on the outside, it's gonna squeeze out on the inside also. So you don't want like big chunks of squeeze out of the adhesive, because you're gonna have that on the inside part too, and then that stuff that can like eventually fall off and get into your fluid and, you know, clog things up stuff. So Very minimal squeeze out. That's what you want to see. Here you can barely see it. It's like barely noticeable. See, it's like the tiniest amount of squeeze out. And you know that you have plenty in there to seal it up and nothing that's gonna like chunk off inside the transmission. But yeah, I got this part in, got that in, and the other side I had already gotten in. So this also has a new seal. So this is pretty much done. I put in my transmission pan back on with a new gasket, a new filter, cleaned out everything as best I could. So let's get these axles in here and then put everything back together, put this cross member back in place, get the steering rack bolted back onto the cross member, and we'll finish this job up. Alright, so I slipped the driver's side axle in, new axles, yep. So new axles in that. Now I'm gonna do the passenger side. Alright, so before I slip the shaft in, I'm just gonna lube it a little bit with the ATF +4. Lube it up so that it doesn't go in dry. Alright, now ready to slip in. Alright, slip the shaft in. Put it into the knuckle. Just gotta put these bolts back in and that should be it. Fill up the transmission, give it a test drive. Alright, so new bearings, new seals, new axles on both sides. And that should take care of all my transmission fluid leaks. Alright, what I'm just gonna do now is I'm gonna fill the transmission fluid. I have to charge the battery before I start it, so I'm not gonna be able to start it today, but I'm gonna end the video here. That was the basic repair. I know this wasn't a step-by-step or anything, but you know, this video should give you an idea of what this job entails when it comes to replacing those bearings on the differential for one of these front-wheel drive Voyagers, Town and Country. You know, they're all the same. Tires are back on. I'm about to put this thing on the ground. All right, thanks for watching.